Aperture explained. Here is my promise of the day. I'll explain aperture in a more intuitive and more interesting way than you have ever heard it before. You will understand why some of the people in your group shots are out of focus, why your background in your portraits is often distracting when it could look like this instead,
and why for landscapes you should use a higher number.
Now why don't you just stop talking and get right into lesson 2 of this photography course?
Okay, aperture. Like everything else in photography, aperture is usually explained in such a way that it is much too complicated. All it is a hole in your lens that can be made bigger or smaller. Remember, the light in the scene you want to photograph enters the camera through your lens, and right in the lens sits the aperture that is variable in size, except for smartphones that have a fixed hole. Now, logically, if you make the size of that hole smaller, a lot of the light will be blocked and less light will be able to continue its way to the sensor. Need proof for that? Here I'm standing in a room, and on the opposite side of the room is a window with blinds. If I close the blinds halfway, half the light will be blocked. And it's the same with the aperture. Close the aperture halfway and half the light will be blocked. Closing both 90% will block 90% of the light. That's pretty logical, right? What confuses so many beginners is how the aperture numbers, so your actual camera setting, is usually explained. The lower the aperture number you set for your camera, the brighter the image will be. What? Less results in more? That's not something you can memorize easily, so I hope for your understanding that I quickly have to flash it you to get this explanation out of your head forever. That was a bit ridiculous. But let me now give you a bedtime mnemonic for aperture. The higher the number you set, the bigger the amount of light that will be blocked. Makes more sense, right? But besides its effect on exposure, aperture plays a much more exciting and creative role in photography. It changes the look of your images dramatically. Before we get to that, I have a very important announcement. I will not do that myself, but I will let the sponsor of this video do it, which is me. I wanted to introduce you to my revolutionary learning system that accompanies these YouTube classes. It will help you learn much faster with much less effort. I call that system the Wolf Method. It helps keeping what you learn by, for example, outsourcing a lot of your brain's resources to muscle memory. If you're not familiar with muscle memory, when you're learning to ride a bike, playing an instrument, or typewriting on a keyboard, at first, everything seems extremely difficult and overwhelming. But once it becomes second nature, you don't even have to think how to ride a bike anymore. You just do it. The Wolf Method uses that phenomenon and consists of a series of short drill exercises that accompany most of the lessons of this YouTube course. You will also get access to bite-sized reminder videos, perfect to fill those little pockets of time during your day. And then there's the Wolf Method community. Ask questions, share your progress, join live Q&As and image reviews. All that is super motivating, and as I said before, you learn extremely fast. As a bonus, you will even get a certificate for completion of the course at the end. What about the price? Honestly, it's surprisingly low, but this special introductory offer won't last forever. To keep it accessible, you can even pay in 4 installments. That should easily be worth the hours, weeks, or even months that you save compared to traditional photography learning methods. Plus, there's a 7-day money-back guarantee. No risk, just results. Don't miss out. That's it, I'll let you continue learning. Thanks, Wolf. I'll give you a link to the website that hosts the Wolf Method at the end of the video. Back to aperture and its creative effects. Let me show you 2 examples. Here is a shot with an aperture of 22. If you want to sound like a fancy pro, use an F followed by a dash when talking or writing about aperture numbers. That's why the aperture number is often called F number. So this image was shot at f22. And now have a look at this image shot at f1.4. Don't worry about what these weird numbers mean. They have their use, but we'll get to that later. In the first image with a large f number, the area from front to back that is in focus is much bigger than in the second image. You might be tempted to call that area that is in focus depth of focus. But no, photographers are weirdos again and call it depth of field. But depth of focus basically means the same thing and would be the much better term. Think of it as the depth of your subject that will be perceived as sharp in your image. So in focus. That's why in many languages it is called depth of sharpness, which would be much more intuitive. For now we'll use the term depth of focus until we dive deeper into the topic. But back again to the images. Did you realize something? How convenient. The bigger the f number, the bigger the depth of focus. So we can build up on our mnemonic from before. The bigger the f number, the bigger the amount of light that will be blocked, and the bigger the depth of focus will be. So bigger, bigger, bigger.
But grammatically, that's not exactly...
Photography is so easy if we just revise how it should be taught instead of teaching it how it was done in 1890. But it gets even better. How does the knowledge of depth of focus change how you are supposed to take pictures? In landscape photography, we usually want a bigger depth of focus because we want as much in focus as possible. For example, the foreground and the background. Same with macro photography. If you photograph an insect, you usually don't only want a part of its eye in focus, but as much as possible. And another use case for a bigger depth of focus is doing group shots. When shooting groups of people, you usually don't only want the person in front sharp, but everyone. In portrait photography, on the other hand, that is totally different. Many photographers like to use small f-numbers to create a smaller depth of focus. That allows you to blur the background and make your subject stand out more. Compare this example at f16 to this one with an aperture of f1.8. I'd say the difference is mind-blowing. One thing you need to understand though is that not all lenses will let you choose such a low f-number, and therefore not all lenses will give you the same amount of background blur. Let's compare two different lenses. On the left is a kit lens that usually comes with your camera, if you buy a kit. If you zoom in on the lens, the lowest possible f-number you can set is f5.6. On the right is a so-called Nifty 50 lens. With this lens you can go as low as f1.8. Can you see how much bigger the aperture opening is? I can tell you exactly how much. It's roughly 10 times bigger. The kit lens at its maximum opening blocks 10 times more light from entering the camera than the Nifty 50. That would give you this image instead of that one. Yes, that's how extreme the difference is in regard to brightness. And how big is it in regard to background blur? Let me just compensate for the loss of light so that you can see the difference better. When it comes to blurring the background in a portrait, the kit lens will give you this image compared to that one shot with a Nifty 50 lens. Pretty crazy, right? I will give you links to very affordable Nifty 50 lenses in the description. So far we have had two effects of aperture: blocking light and changing the depth of focus, or depth of field if you will. Bigger f-number, bigger amount of light that is blocked, bigger depth of focus. But there is one more effect of aperture. Let's do a quick product shot. First at the lowest aperture number when the aperture is completely open. Let me zoom into the image so that you can see the sharpness. Particularly cheaper lenses are not all that sharp at the lowest f-number. Choosing a higher f-number though will not only increase the depth of focus but also the general sharpness of the image. Here is the image wide open again, and then at a higher f-number. And luckily, we again have a bigger, so our mnemonic for aperture continues. The bigger the f-number, the bigger the amount of light that will be blocked, the bigger the depth of focus will be, and the bigger the overall sharpness. So whenever you think about the aperture, just think about bigger, 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 bigger. 4 times bigger, the rest will fall into place. Unfortunately, there is a tiny caveat to that last part. While the overall sharpness increases with a higher f-number, that is only true until you reach a certain sweet spot. That is usually at around f8 to f11. From that point onwards, the sharpness decreases again, due to a physical effect called diffraction. It wouldn't be me if I didn't have a sample image for you. Compare the same image we shot before at f11 to this image at f32. So let's make an asterisk on that last bigger. I know all that sounds a little intimidating, but I don't want you to leave intimidated and frustrated. That wouldn't be me. But you need to help yourself too. To give your understanding a big boost, immediately go back to the start and repeat this video. Repetition is key to learning and understanding. Doing that right away will improve your understanding fourfold. But setting your calendar for repeating again tomorrow and the day after tomorrow will improve it at least tenfold. That is how you learn photography. To help you even more, I have created this cheat sheet that you can hang on your fridge or put in your camera bag. You will get this and all memory aids and cheat sheets of upcoming lessons for free if you subscribe to my email list, The Wolf Letter. Check out the link in the description. No, it doesn't require to purchase the Wolf Method tools. It is just the email list. And now to the Wolf Method. This is the perfect time to do your first drill training that will nail the perfect aperture settings into your brain so that your muscle memory can take over. You can get access to these tools at wolfarmory.com. Remember, there is an introductory price, so you better hurry up. See you in the next lesson. I promise you will love it.